Welcome to B.R. Ambedkar Open University students. In this session, let us talk about reading and listening skills. First, let us look at the reading concept and significance, then we will proceed to listening, its concept and significance. Reading is making meaning from written message, any written text for that matter, whether it is handwritten or printed text. When you are making meaning from the written message, that is called technically reading. Reading is a process of acquiring information. It uses the eye and mind to see the information and understand it. There are different definitions of reading. Consider the following. Reading is the process of constructing meaning from written texts. It is a complex skill requiring the coordination of a number of interrelated sources of information, according to Anderson et al. 1985. Then other experts also said something about it. Let us look at it. Reading is the process of constructing meaning through the dynamic interaction among the reader's existing knowledge, the information suggested by the text being read, and the context of the reading situation. Wixon, Peters, Weber, Rober, 1987. Reading is a complex cognitive process. It means it happens in the mind and heart. Cognitive is more related to mind, but something else also will be happening in the heart. But medically, the heart is a pumping machine. It pumps the blood into the veins and arteries. But generally speaking, we talk about thinking and feeling. So, feelings happen in the heart and thinking happens in the brain. That is a popular understanding, maybe misconception, but that is so. Reading is a complex cognitive process. It happens in the mind of decoding symbols in order to construct or derive meaning. That is reading comprehension. It involves a multifaceted process comprising word recognition, comprehension, fluency and motivation as given under. A. Recognition, identification of the written or print word. If you are unable to identify the words, the letters written or printed, you may not be able to read properly. That is why while writing we have to follow legible handwriting or go for print, which can be clear. So, identification is recognition. B. Comprehension, construct an understanding from them. Whatever is written, are you able to construct understanding based on that? That is also part of your reading. Then C is fluency, coordination of both recognition and comprehension to speed up understanding. Coordination of both recognition and comprehension to speed up understanding, that is fluency. Then comes D, motivation, the interest in further reading. For example, students are reading for their exams. There is a purpose, because you have to gain some marks with some interest and with deep involvement you are reading. For example, you are reading newspaper. In the similar way, you cannot read newspaper because it is general news and sports, politics, that this. So, general news you may not pay attention. Similarly, textbooks. So, each reading has a purpose. It has different things involved actually. Now, significance. What is the significance of reading? Reading is the key to personality development. Reading also adds to your personality. A well-read person is a different person. He does not speak unnecessarily. When he speaks, you can understand the depth of his or her knowledge. So, reading is the key to personality development and informed decision making in life. Your decision making depends on how much you have read in your life actually. Those who do not read deprive themselves of important information. Some people will be flipping through the pages, they are not reading seriously. 2-3 pages they leave, then go to the 5th page, then 6th page. So, that is not called correct reading. When you want to read, read with some interest. There are other things to discuss. Number 1, Reading helps attain knowledge. Reading is a way of understanding the expressions of others, because each writer, each author expresses in a different way. The style is different, the vocabulary is different, the choice of the situations is different, the way characterization is done, that is different. So, reading gives you lot of information, lot of knowledge. Every piece of writing gives you some sort of emotions and knowledge. Reading is directly proportional to knowledge. The more you read, the more knowledgeable you become. Be it science, history, arts, or any other subject, reading is indispensable for staying aware and get knowledge. Second thing, it provides peace and relaxation. Some people will be reading for pleasure, for mental peace. They read motivational books, they read some scriptures, they read great epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata. So, it gives mental peace and relaxation also. Reading builds a relation between the reader and the text. This is the foremost reason why reading is a passion for so many people. But after this digital era, when this digital text is appearing, reading habits are slowly going down. Otherwise, still there are voracious readers. Book lovers find pleasure in the company of a book than a human being. They find peace in reading. They feel as if they are meditating. Reading is a means to achieve self relaxation and inner peace. Like you are reading some mantra, some Bhagavad Gita, some scripture, something. Each book becomes very important for them. Some readers are like that, and they read with utmost interest. That is the correct reading. Next, reading is a tool of learning. You scroll through sites, you glance through newspapers, and you turn the pages of magazines and books in order to stay informed. Without reading, one cannot get information on any subject. Next, reading improves speaking also. Be it public speaking or group discussions, you require current information and in-depth knowledge of the topic. There are many colleges where campus recruitment will be going on. Some companies come there, some organizations come there, and they conduct public speaking sessions. They give a topic and instantly you are asked to speak on that. How are you going to speak? Because you have never tried to read anything in your life. So, suddenly you cannot speak. You need some information on the given topic. If unknown topic is given, then you will fumble. You cannot read or speak. Similarly, in group discussions also, some known and unknown topics are given. Unless you are well-read person, you cannot participate and get through that group discussion also. This is possible through reading only. You will come across thousands of people who are good speakers because they are good readers across the globe. Unless they read, they cannot speak. Then another point is, reading helps learn a language. The style of language, the diction, the vocabulary, the prosody, the grammar, sentence structures, all these things indirectly you will come to know. So, language proficiency is also increasing. Every language is made up of words and grammar. Obviously, by reading, your stock of words gets enriched. Reading will help identify beautiful expressions. By noting them and using them, one can improve the skills of expressing himself. The skills of reading and writing are universally important. The blind people read with the help of Braille language. For certain occupations like teaching, literary writing, entertainment and public relations, these skills are rather indispensable as they define their success in their fields. Significance of reading for managers. This is not only important for ordinary students or general people, but for managers also. If you really want to become a good manager, then go for some reading also. Managers require reading and writing skills as they make use of their professional expertise and human relations to get things done. The following views highlight why reading is important to managers. Number 1, decision making. If you want to take better decisions, then spend some time on reading. Managers go through reports newspapers, internal records and memos before taking a decision. Reading and oral communication help them gain an understanding of the situation for making decisions. Unless they refer to previous GOs or some reports, some letters, some emails, they cannot take decisions. Number 2 is training. Training processes involve reading codified knowledge and test materials. Third, assigning work. Work assignments involve issuing job cards, project descriptions and reports. So, some reading is indirectly happening. Fourth is appraising. Managers have to fill in appraisal forms for evaluation. They refer to different records and reports relating to employee behavior and performance. 5. Intelligence gathering. Business intelligence is important managerial decision making. Business intelligence comes in the form of seminar proceedings, media publications, government and industry reports, management textbooks and write-ups in magazines and journals. Intelligence about own company is gathered from in-house journals, publicity materials and reports. So, reading is one of the important skills and it is a source of knowledge for managers. Basically, we can divide reading into the following types. One is extensive reading and second is intensive reading. For example, let us talk about extensive reading. Extensive reading involves diversified reading, mostly for pleasure or getting general knowledge. It means you will consult various books, maybe art, literature, science, technology, diversified, because maybe in future you want to become a big bureaucrat, maybe an IAS officer, maybe group 1 officer or a big manager, CEO, whatever. So, varied knowledge is required for that, and where from this knowledge comes? Through books only or websites. It is done by students to have an understanding of various issues. It requires a fluid decoding and assimilation of the text in the book. If the text is difficult, the reader stops every minute to figure out what is being said or to look up new words in the dictionary. Thus, the reading is not continuous and serious. It is characterized by reading, breaking, referencing, reflecting and understanding. So, a good idea is to keep a dictionary handy while you are reading. Then that is extensive reading. Then when we talk about intensive reading, this can also be called active reading. It refers to in-depth reading with attention. It involves reading the same topic to have complete understanding of it. Continuously without breaks, paying utmost attention to the text in hand, it helps with retention of information for long periods of time. This type of reading is related more to the academic reading. It is for knowledge. Specialization happens through this type of reading. Research papers, term papers, oral reports or project assignments are prepared and submitted through this reading. Language learners adopt this reading. It helps them understand vocabulary by deducing the meaning of words in context. Now, third type is relaxed reading. The objective of this type of reading is to spend time on something that gives a feeling of relaxation. For example, you are reading a novel written by some famous writer. So, that gives you a lot of relaxation. It refers to the light reading books like novels, stories and hobby magazines. Here the attention levels are moderate and reading is more general without any specific focus. What is interesting is read and the other material is not even looked at. So, some people without looking at the materials also they will be imagining as if they are reading. So, fourth type is critical reading. Critical reading is a process of analyzing, interpreting and evaluating the content. For example, you read one paragraph and think why the writer is thinking in this way, what made him or her to write this way, what is the trigger behind this, where from they got motivation. If you are thinking all these things, then definitely you are a critical reader. When you read critically, you question both the text and your own reading of it. It does not take the given text at face value, but involves a deeper examination of the claims put forth as well as the supporting points and possible counter arguments. Critical reading is characterized by involvement, high level of attention, threadbare analysis, intensive coverage and evaluation. Students study textbooks, managers study reports and professionals study cases of their clients. All these things come under critical reading. The next type is selective reading. As the name suggests, selective reading is a process of reading with purpose. Instead of reading a text that might have no practical value, you can select the most important information from the whole text. Managers facing time deadlines aim to pick up the key information which is needed for the immediate situation. The concept of 1-minute manager with dynamic communication style is popular in today's competitive business world. Rapid reading, fast reflections and quick comprehension are the characteristics of this 1-minute manager. Then move on to the next, sixth one, detailed reading. In contrast to the selective reading style, this approach is used for extracting information accurately from the whole text. Adopters of this style read every word for understanding the meaning of the text. Like lawyers, they read the case very carefully and pull out 1 or 2 points which can land the opposite party in trouble. Generally, the reader would first skim the text. Skimming is general reading, reading for general idea, for getting a general idea. He will then go back to read in detail. Management students read cases by adopting this method. They read the case and get an overall idea of the situation and problem embedded in it. Then they read again to identify the key points or events. In the third reading, they read every word and make a note of the key ideas and important descriptions. Reading techniques. Reading is a great habit that can enrich human life. It can entertain us, amuse us and empower us with knowledge. The following are 7 techniques of reading used in different situations. Number 1 is scanning. It is an act of drawing some specific points from the available text as such. You scan when you look for your favorite TV show listed in the cable guide, for your friend's phone number in a telephone book and for the cricket scores in the newspaper. You quickly go through the content in the text to find the points you are looking for. So, it works to find answers to the questions like what, when, where, who and why. For students, it works as a bullet way to locate answers to specific questions. Scanning can be effective by following the procedure given under. Establish your purpose, locate the appropriate material and know how the information is structured. So, this is called scanning technique. Then second technique is skimming. It refers to reading quickly to get the main points and skipping over the detail. This is used for getting the gist of the whole text. We generally use this technique at the time of reading newspaper or magazine. It is useful in getting a preview of a book, especially novels. To select a novel or magazine for buying, you may look at the content page and quickly travel through the pages, reading headings or looking at the images to make a decision. We get an overall idea of the publication by just skimming. So, this is generic reading style. How to skim? Skimming is effective when you can quickly understand the content and relate it to your purpose. Let us say you are doing research on a website. By reading the introductory paragraphs, you will get a good idea of how the information is organized. Once you know the organization of the content, you can begin to read only the first sentence of each paragraph, also called topic sentences. They give you the main idea of the paragraph. If you are unable to get the required idea from that, you may want to skim more. While skimming, if you feel you are grasping the main ideas, then you are skimming correctly. Third one is structure proposition evaluation. This is another technique of reading. This technique is suggested by Mortimer Adler in his book How to Read a Book. It involves reading as explained here below. Study of the structure of the work. Look at the main head, subheads and any other highlighted material in the text. Study of the local propositions made and organized into chains of inference. Identify the development of ideas, the logic underlying such development and understand the chain of thoughts. Then evaluation of the merits of the arguments and conclusions. Take a balanced view and evaluate the ideas and the conclusions. This is the method suggested by Mortimer in his book How to Read a Book. Then fourth one is SQ3R technique. When reading a book or a lengthy report, you can adopt this method and complete reading with comprehension in less time. The method involves 5 different steps which are as follows. Survey. Spend some time looking at the whole with an eye on key parts. You can approach the reading as follows. Take a few minutes to consider the title. Look at all illustrations, diagrams, graphs. Quickly read the summary before the chapter, if there is one. And D. Glance at all keywords, questions for consideration, problem sets. That is survey method under SQ3R. Then Q stands for question. Read with a question in mind. Why am I reading this book? What is the purpose of reading this? This will make reading a more active process. The question guides you when you are reading. Develop questions relating to the subject. An easy way to raise questions is to turn all subheadings into questions. Look for the answers while reading the text. Thus, you will end up with fewer notes to review. That is Q. Then 3R. Read, recite, review. Make an attempt to find answers to the questions you have generated in your survey. Once you have found your answer, highlight or underline it in the book or report and write a keyword or an abbreviated question in the margin. Next is recite. Cover up the text that you have just read and read out loudly the question. Try to answer the questions in your own words using only the keywords that are required to sum up the complete idea. That is recite. Then review. At the end of your study session, don't just close up your book or report and forget what you have done. Leave yourself 15 extra minutes. Take a 5-minute break and then go back to the material that you started reading at the beginning of your study session and take 5 to 10 minutes to repeat the process outlined under recite. If you have 1 hour for reading, the time distribution for each step shall be as follows. Survey 5 minutes, question 5 minutes, read 30 minutes, recite 15 minutes and review 5 minutes. This approach if you follow, your reading will be very effective. The next one is focused readings. How can a busy manager read a book or report in less time without missing the important content? The recommended approach for this situation is as follows. 1. Random jotting for an overall view. 2. Framing questions to focus on key points. 3. Random diving to gain understanding. A reading skill is a task-oriented cognitive ability deployed unconsciously by a person when interacting with the written text to gain an understanding of the content. According to Davies 1968, reading skills include identifying word meaning, drawing inferences, identifying writer's technique, recognizing mood of passage and finding answers to questions. Mamt 1978 identified the following as reading skills: recognizing script of language, deducing meaning and use of familiar lexical items, understanding explicit and implicit information, conceptual meaning, communicative value of sentences, relations within sentence and between parts of text, and recognizing discourse indicators and main information. Lunzer et al. 1979 considered the following as reading skills: word meaning in context, literal comprehension, drawing inferences, interpretation of metaphor, finding main ideas and forming judgments. According to Grabe 1991, communication skills include automatic recognition skills, vocabulary and structural knowledge, formal discourse structure knowledge, content word background knowledge, synthesis and evaluation skills, metacognitive language and skills monitoring. Now, let us talk about listening skills. Listening, concept and importance. Active process of receiving and responding to spoken or unspoken messages is termed as listening. Listening means trying to see the problem the way the speaker sees it. Listening requires entering actively and imaginatively into the other fellow's situation and trying to understand a frame of reference different from your own. This is not always an easy task. The importance of listening can be highlighted as follows. Foundation for communication. Oral communication is talking and listening when some speaks. We interrupt, advise, reassure, judge, analyze, criticize, argue, moralize, threaten, divert, diagnose. These things will be happening when you are listening. It facilitates management. Chester I. Bernard observed that every manager in an organization is primarily a communicating center. Managers spend approximately 70% of their time in a day in communicating. According to a researcher, 9% of time is spent in writing, 16% is in reading, 30% in speaking and 45% in listening. So, listening fosters relationships also. It improves creativity. It resolves conflicts. Conflicts arise between two or more persons due to misunderstanding. One simple way of resolving conflicts is discussion. Listening creates scope for amicable conversation, exchange of ideas and elimination of misunderstandings. And it reduces written communication needs. If you are able to listen properly, you need not write it. It builds very good image. It encourages achievement also. Hearing versus listening. If listening is the act of hearing with attention, then what is hearing? What is listening? What are the differences between hearing and listening? Hearing is simply the act of perceiving sound by the ear. If you are not deaf, hearing happens naturally. It is an involuntary process. Whereas listening is more than just hearing. It is a voluntary act where you try to make sense out of the sound you hear. It is a process by which what is said by speaker is received and understood. It involves understanding of the meaning behind the sounds. The two activities, hearing and listening, involve the use of ears, but they are different. Someone rightly said, hearing is through ears, but listening is through the mind. Hearing is the physical ability, while listening is a skill. Different types of listening: active listening, repeating, paraphrasing, reflecting, appreciative listening, discriminative listening, deep listening, empathic listening, sympathetic listening, critical evaluative listening, reflective listening, emotional listening, therapeutic listening, fake or pseudo listening and spasmodic listening. At last, spasmodic listening is referring to listening suddenly for short periods of time and not listening thereafter. It is thus a discontinuous process of listening. Listener pays attention to the speaker for some time, then shifts his attention to something that interests him. The result is partial understanding. Students switch on and switch off their mind to the lecturers and teachers. Then you have inactive listening also. The listener listens with a wandering mind, with body present and mind absent. It happens in classrooms also. We will not be able to listen. It results in waste of time for speaker and listener both. Students sometimes adopt this strategy when not interested in the subject, but it is their loss. Then next one is biased listening. Biased listening happens when the person hears only what they want to hear and they filter the rest of the information. Also, he makes a deliberate attempt to distort or misinterpret what the other person said. Such biased listening is often very evaluative in nature. It is based on stereotypes and other biases they have. Then finally, we have selective listening. Selective listening is a listening technique that filters and summarizes to achieve comprehension. Selective listening leads to listening what they choose to listen. The choices are influenced by their preferences and biases towards the subject or speaker. Now, finally, barriers to effective listening. One is environmental barrier, physical distraction or some noise. Other physical distraction can be room temperature or mosquito sound, ventilation, smells, all these things are barriers. Then auditory distractions can be cell phone ring, music or horns of vehicles, so many other factors. Visual distraction can be the hand and head movements of listener, people coming in and going out. So, these are some of the barriers. Then physiological barriers are also there. Physiological barriers are related with the limitations of the human body and the human mind, memory, attention and perception. When the sensory organs are not in good condition, the listener may not be able to concentrate and understand what the speaker says. Or the speaker style also, if it is irritating or always you are talking something negative, then the other person will switch off. Next one is psychological barrier. Psychological distractions can be preconceived notions, stereotype thinking and even the status of a person, famous, not famous. Prejudice is a preconceived opinion of feeling which is usually irrational. A prejudiced person will be either indifferent or apathetic. Linguistic barriers. Language and linguistic ability can be a major barrier to listening. Some are speaking fast, some terminology may not be understood, things like that. Then semantic barriers. Words that trigger strong negative feelings against the speaker or the content of the speech is called semantic noise. Semantic noise leads to misunderstanding, like using bombastic words for example, people may not be able to understand or the style may be different. So, semantic barriers as well as unpleasant and distracting non-verbal feedback from the audience. Then there are perceptual barriers. Perceptual barriers means sometimes listeners sometimes see the same situation from different angles based on their backgrounds and purpose of knowing the information. The perceptual differences result in differences in understanding. For example, a news that share values of ABC company have fallen may be considered as a signal to sell off shares for pessimists, whereas it may be viewed as an opportunity to buy for an optimist. Then social barriers are there. Social factors such as age, gender, marital status may set up barriers in certain situations. Cultural barriers, as we discussed earlier, different cultures, people have different habits. Cultural difference leads to a difference in interest, knowledge, value and tradition. Therefore, people of different cultures will experience these cultural factors as barriers. Cultures provide people with ways of thinking, ways of seeing, hearing and interpreting the world. Cultural differences can include speakers' accents, vocabulary, assumptions about shared information. That is all about reading. There can be many barriers like speaker barrier, listener barrier. You can follow the given tips and make listening effective. Number 1, decide to listen. Listening is a choice. In business situations, you may have to listen to your boss, peers and customers. Then you make a resolve to listen attentively. Do the following to support the decision. Stop talking and start listening. Focus your attention by clearing away all distractions. Choose a place where distractions like physical, visual and auditory are not present. If there are any such distractions, remove them. That is all about listening. Keep an open mind, face the speaker, be attentive, manage your own emotions, do not interrupt, give feedback, empathize, listen for the whole message, use comprehension. That's all for listening skills. All the best.